smoking furnace and a burning lamp that pass between those pieces. Again, the sun being the one that's moving. Okay? Joshua 10 and 12. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, again reference to the sun being one that moves, and the moon stayed, so the sun also moves in its course, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. So it's the sun and the moon which move, man. Okay? Sirach 48 and 23. Sirach 48 and 23. In his time the sun went backward, and he lengthened the king's life. Okay? So Ezekiel, in the time of Ezekiel, the sun actually went backward, man. Okay? Again, a reference to the sun being the one that moves, not the earth move backward. Okay? Job 9 and 7. It says, which commandeth the sun, and it riseth not, and sealeth up the stars. Again, reference to the sun being the one that moves, and not the earth. Psalms 19 and 4. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and is circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Right, so they're likening the way the word of the Heavenly Father travels to the sun. Right? Because the word goes from one end of the earth onto another end, and it also burns, because it's burning you false prophets up, man. But it's saying that the sun runs the same circuit, man. Right? Like a race. So, you know, you're getting cut, man. You heliocentric, and you people that claim you believe in the Bible, which a lot of you Christians claim you believe in the Bible, but you believe the sun is the center of the universe. That shows you the devil, man. And you're really an unbeliever, man. And you really don't know nothing, man. You've been deceived by the devil. Right? Which is a so-called white man. Job 26 and 7. It says, he stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. So the earth is in its place, and they ain't got no strings attached, man. That's why they can take photos of the earth from their satellites, and you see there ain't no strings attached, man. And it ain't moving, man. Psalms 93 and 1. The Lord reigneth, he is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. The world also established that it cannot be moved. And that's talking about the earth, man. The earth cannot be moved, man. Okay. So that's letting you know that man. Okay, let's get Josephus, the 8th chapter. Right, so even our forefather Abraham, he was a master astronomer, man, and he knew all these things, man. In fact, he taught the Egyptians everything they knew about astronomy, man, which is true. Right, even though they had a lot of mythology and bullshit, the true calculations they used and information they had upon astrology all came from Abraham, man. Because he tells here in the Josephus, book 1, chapter 8, it's the first paragraph here. At the bottom of the first paragraph, it says, he, meaning Pharaoh, also made him a large present in money, and gave him leave to enter into conversation with the most learned among the Egyptians, from which conversation his virtue and his reputation became more conspicuous than they had been before. For whereas the Egyptians were formerly addicted to different customs and despised one another's sacred and accustomed rites, and were very angry one with another on that account, Abraham conferred with each of them, and confuting the reasonings they made use of, every one for their own practices, which is what Esau is doing today. Because he worships the sun, he just goes around saying the sun is the center of the universe. But that's madness, man. Right? Demonstrated that such reasonings were vain, man, and void of truth, and whereupon he was admired by them in those conferences as a very wise man and one of great sagacity, when he discoursed on any subject he undertook. And that's why you had certain men in Greece that had certain knowledge. They were jakes, man. Right? What do they call them? The 7 sages. They were jakes, man. Because our forefather Abraham was likened unto a sage, man. Right? Right. When he was admired by them in those conferences as a very wise man and one of great sagacity, when he discoursed on any subject he undertook, and this not only in understanding it, but in persuading other men also to assent to him, he communicated to them arithmetic. So Abraham was the one who really began to taught them arithmetic. And then if Abraham was a great man in arithmetic, how much more say was Isaac and Jacob? Because a man back then would teach his sons the things which he knew. And Abraham lived to a ripe old age, man. So he taught his sons and his servants the things he knew. Because why would he teach the Egyptians and not teach his own children? So Isaac and Jacob, and then when you go into the patriarchs, they knew about arithmetic, man. Okay, they knew about astronomy. They weren't dummies, man. Some of them might have been better than the others, naturally, but they knew about these things. So you think they were just shepherds? They were more than men back then had knowledge, man. Shepherds was just what they did to eat. He said he communicated to them arithmetic and delivered to them the science or the knowledge of astronomy. For before Abraham came into Egypt, they were unacquainted with those parts of learning, for that science came from the Chaldeans into Egypt, and from thence to the Greeks also. Right? So them Greeks that knew about the geocentric methodology and all that all goes back to Abraham, man. And that's the truth. Okay? So, let's get back on point. Let's get First Chronicles. Just to show you, our forefathers, man, they were expert at these things, man. These so-called white people, they're charlatans, man. Our forefathers knew what they were talking about, man. So when they tell you that the earth is the center of the universe, you better damn well believe it, man. Right? But you know, a lot of you niggas, you still want to believe the white man's bullshit. That's why you're going to be destroyed, man. Because you're out of course, man. First Chronicles 12 and 32. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. Right? Meaning they were masters at reading the signs of the heaven, man. And they were also masters at astrology too. That's why they lined up the pyramids with, you know, angles, arithmetic. They were masters, man. Issachar, right? They weren't foolish men. You want to know about that? Just look at the pyramids which they built in South America, man. Look at the calendar that the Mayans did, man. Which they're another tribe of Israel, man. So all them tribes there, they had knowledge, man. They weren't no dummies, right? Right, so that's the point on that. That the earth doesn't move, and the earth is the center of the universe, man. And the sun goes around the earth, man. So now, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to go into the information, man, which we have. Right, I've got a website here. And there's a lot of information on this website. Right, so we're back. So, you know, I already went through the scriptures, proving without a doubt through the scriptures of the Bible that the earth, you know, is the center of the universe and it doesn't move, man. Right, that the sun, the moon and the stars and all the heavenly hosts, they move around the earth, okay? But the earth itself is stationary. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through some scientific evidence from this website, just go through different points. You know, I can't really, you know, fully expound on every point. So, you know, I'm going to post up the website, and brothers who are interested, they can have a look, man. So yeah, let's read some of this. Says there is something about space they don't want you to know. The sun spiral orbits around the stationary spherical earth. The world, earth, and an unattached atmosphere is neither rotating around its own axis nor orbiting the sun. In reality, the sun, stars, and moon are going around the stationary spherical world, just as observed and just as the Bible. You know, we forget about the Quran, and that's madness. Since the sun takes 24 hours to go around the earth, the moon takes 24 hours and 15 minutes 28 seconds, you know, approximately. The stars take 23 hours and 4 seconds, and they all go from east to west. True non-hypothetical science, observational data, our senses, physical experiments and logic contradicts the assertions of mainstream scientists. Existing, deceitful, fraud-ridden, unverifiable, state-funded mathematical meaning exists and works on paper and in imagination only model of the universe that is saturated with metaphysical nonsense and derived from the mystical Kabbalah of the Pharisee religion. Moreover, the intelligible Christian Bibles voluntarily funded geocentric, geostationary model of the universe proclaims the sun's path creates and completes an orbit around the motionless spherical earth daily. Right, the sun and moon circle daily east to west while set within and carried along a spiral north-south path. The sun takes about 6 months southbound, then about 6 months northbound, and that's how you get your seasons. Moon about 2 weeks southbound, then 2 weeks northbound. That's where you get your variation in tides throughout the year. The stars are set within the inner surface of a rotating